Smell like money.
For the last 5 years, one name has kept popping up anytime people talk about power moves in the music industry: Yo Gotti. His label, CMG, Collective Music Group, has launched careers, shattered streaming records, and built what insiders estimate to be a $500 million empire. But with all that success came something else: rumors, whispers about shady paperwork, artists getting finessed, and claims that Gotti built his fortune by taking advantage of young rappers who didn't know any better. But here's the wild part: nobody's actually investigating any of that. No deep dives into the contracts, no breakdown of the numbers, no comparison to standard industry deals. So that's what we're doing today. How did Mario Mims, a kid from the streets of North Memphis, turn himself into one of hip-hop's most powerful executives? And are the rumors about how he runs CMG actually true? By the end of this video, you'll have something most people don't: facts. You'll see exactly how he moved, how he built his empire, and whether he really did finesse hungry young artists, or if he's simply a smarter businessman than everyone else. To understand Yo Gotti's business, you need to understand Yo Gotti's beginning. Mario Mims was born May 19, 1981, in North Memphis, not the scenic, tourist-friendly Memphis people think of. We're talking about Ridgecrest Apartments in Fraser, one of the roughest housing projects in one of America's most violent cities. His family wasn't just struggling, they were deeply rooted in the streets. His mom, Jerry, hustled. His dad did time. His brother, Anthony, did time. This wasn't a family trying to escape the streets. This was a family whose only economy was the streets. Gotti has described moments that tell you just how normal that life was. He once said he went to grab a popsicle as a kid and found stacks of money hidden in the freezer. That wasn't unusual. Money came from the streets. Money got tucked wherever it fit. Survival had its own system. But here's the critical part, the part most people skip. Gotti never saw hustling as the end game. He saw it as a bridge. Even as a kid, he was thinking business, thinking long-term, thinking escape route. At 14, he started rapping under the name Lil Yo, not because he felt some deep artistic calling, but because he saw Memphis rapper Skinny Pimp cruising in a drop-top 5.0 Mustang and realized he got that from rapping. That means money. That right there tells you everything. From day one, Yo Gotti didn't view rap as culture. He viewed it as a business opportunity. By 15, he dropped his first mixtape, Youngsters on a Come Up. No label, no industry connections, just selling tapes out of his trunk and getting them into record stores on consignment. This is important because it immediately contradicts the narrative that Gotti doesn't understand the artist's struggle. He lived it. Long before independent became a hashtag, he was actually independent. By his early 20s, he was juggling two worlds, still hustling and building a rap career that was slowly extending beyond Memphis. Then came the education phase, the part that shaped the CMG boss we know today. Gotti spent time around Birdman and Cash Money in the late 90s and early 2000s. He wasn't signed to them, but he was close enough to study their operation. He said he went to Birdman's house and saw 15 to 20 luxury cars parked outside. Not artist money, executive money, ownership money. The kind of wealth you get from controlling masters, publishing, and the engine that prints money even when you're not in the studio. Cash Money's strategy was simple: sign artists for cheap, build them up, own everything. Everybody eats. Gotti studied it all. He studied Jay-Z, Master P, Jay Prince, Russell Simmons. What they did right, what they did wrong, how they rose, and how they fell. In the mid-2000s, Gotti signed with TVT Records, hoping for his big break. Instead, he got $40,000 up front and signed away his masters, publishing, and more. Basically a full 360, where he got nearly nothing. He ended up paying $450,000 to get out of that contract. He took a $410,000 loss just to regain his freedom. Most artists would complain forever, not Gotti. His response was simple: I made a bad deal. I didn't understand the business. That's on me. He learned the lesson. Ownership matters. He bought 10 to 15 houses in Memphis, but didn't understand taxes or the cost of maintaining them. When tax season hit, he had to sell at losses to cover the bills. Again, he didn't blame anyone. He blamed his lack of education. Every loss became a classroom. In 2012, Yo Gotti launched his label, Cocaine Music Group, until 50 Cent told him the obvious. You're gonna scare corporations. Switch the name. So, he rebranded it Collective Music Group, kept the initials, and made it corporate-friendly. CMG partnered with major labels like Epic and later Interscope. They handle distribution, marketing, radio, while CMG discovers and develops raw talent. That's the real blueprint. The rumor is simple. Gotti signs artists to brutal 360 deals and milks them dry. So, let's look at actual evidence. What artists have said, and what the numbers show. Signed since 2016. One of the biggest artists in hip-hop today. If the deal was trash, why is he still there 8+ years later? He said, Gotti was straight with me from day one. He gave me opportunities I didn't have on my own. That doesn't sound like someone being exploited. Glorilla, signed in 2022 after FNF went viral. Rumor says she signed a bad deal. Reality, she got a $500,000 signing bonus before proving she could deliver a second hit. CMG invested millions into her career afterward. Glorilla herself has repeatedly said she's happy with her deal. 42 Dugg, jointly signed to CMG and Lil Baby's 4PF, a very artist-friendly model. He said, I got two big brothers looking out for me. According to insiders, Gotti tailors deal individually, not cookie-cutter contracts. He adds staff specifically for each artist he signs. He teaches his artists about publishing, royalties, and money. He requires artists to get accountants. He explains how to build wealth outside of music. If you're trying to exploit artists, the last thing you'd want is for them to be educated. A smart predator keeps their victims confused. Gotti keeps his artists informed. Because here's the business truth. If you screw an artist, they leave the first chance they get and ruin your reputation. If you treat them fairly, they stay and bring more artists with them. CMG's growth speaks for itself. Artists stay. New talent joins every year. So, where do the finessing rumors come from? A misunderstanding of 360 deals. Gotti has said this many times. What's 100% of nothing? If an independent artist keeps everything but makes no real money, it means nothing. But if the label takes 20% to 30% but helps the artist make millions, both sides win. Case studies prove this. Before CMG, Moneybagg Yo had regional buzz, not national presence. After CMG, he had Billboard hits, a #1 album, and a massive career. Could he have done it alone? Maybe, but the timing says otherwise. Same with Glorilla. Without CMG, she might have been a one-hit wonder. With CMG, she's building a long-term career. In those cases, Gotti isn't taking a cut of what artists would have made anyway. He's taking a cut of revenue that CMG helped create. Some record labels sign artists, take their percentage, and then do absolutely nothing to help them succeed. The artist ends up losing money and gaining zero value. So, is CMG one of those labels? Or is the truth completely different? Today, we're breaking down the accusations, the evidence, and the rumors, especially the ones that shook the hip-hop world. Let's dive in. Here's the deal. CMG artists don't just sign and disappear. The numbers tell a different story. Streaming goes up, features get bigger, tours get larger. That's real value, and it's why CMG's cut makes sense. But if that's true, why do people accuse Yo Gotti and CMG of finessing artists? Let's start with the first major controversy. In 2021, CMG artist Plain James went public, claiming the label was discriminating against him, delaying his releases, and treating him differently than other artists. Serious accusations, right? But what really happened? James expected heavy promotion. CMG expected strong performance. When his music didn't hit the numbers, The label scaled back investment. Harsh? Maybe. But that's standard in the music business. Labels put money where they see returns. So is that exploitation or just reality? Every major label has artists who feel under-supported. That's not unique to CMG. And here's the kicker. No lawsuit, no other artists backing him up. The drama stayed on social media and faded away. Next accusation. Artists leaving CMG because they're unhappy. Sounds shady, right? Except, artists leave labels all the time for normal reasons. Contracts end, creative differences, independence goals. Take Black Youngsta. Signed from 2015 to 2020, dropped multiple projects, had success. When his contract ended, he went independent. Not because he was exploited, but because he wanted more control and a bigger revenue share. That's business, not drama. Now, the most explosive rumor, CMG being linked to Young Dolph's murder in 2021. After Dolph was killed, conspiracy theories flooded the internet. But here's the truth. Law enforcement investigated, arrests were made, and the suspects had zero ties to CMG. No evidence, no connection. Using a tragedy to fuel a narrative isn't investigation. It's reckless. It dishonors Dolph's memory and spreads misinformation. If CMG were really exploiting artists, you'd see high turnover, bitter exits, and public warnings. Instead, you see loyalty, career growth, and completed contracts without drama. That's not exploitation. That's business done right. So, is CMG finessing artists? The evidence says no. They're not perfect. No label is, but the rumors don't hold up. Moneybagg Yo joined CMG back in 2016, and he's still there in 2024. That's more than 8 years with the same label. 42 Dugg signed in 2019. Still locked in with CMG 5 years later. Glorilla came aboard in 2022, and she hasn't shown even the slightest hint of regret. ESTG signed in 2020. Still riding with CMG and Black Youngsta. He spent 5 solid years with the label before going independent. Not running away, just moving on like any artist eventually does. That kind of loyalty is rare in the music business. Most artist-label relationships fall apart fast. Drama, lawsuits, frustrations, that's usually the norm. But at CMG, artists aren't sprinting for the exit. They're staying. When an artist hates their label, you almost never have to guess. They throw shade on social media. They drop subliminal in interviews. Sometimes they straight up release diss tracks. But CMG artists, they're doing the opposite. They talk about Gotti like he's a mentor, a coach, even a big brother. They praise him publicly. They thank him in interviews. They defend him when people online start spinning rumors. Could they be forced into this by contract? Theoretically, yes. But realistically, not likely. Plenty of artists in strict contracts still manage to let the world know they're unhappy. CMG artists don't sound controlled. They sound genuinely grateful. This might be the biggest red flag against the whole Gotti is exploiting artists narrative. Multiple people, from insiders to artists themselves, say Gotti pushes financial literacy from day one. He requires new artists to hire a CPA. He sits them down and teaches them the business side. Royalties, publishing, ownership, taxes, everything. Ask yourself this. Why would a predatory label boss teach his artists how to protect themselves? He wouldn't. If you want to exploit someone, you keep them lost and confused. You don't explain contracts. You don't teach them how to manage money. You don't help them become independent thinkers. But that's exactly what Gotti does. He's building educated long-term partners, not victims. Gotti doesn't sugarcoat the business. He openly admits CMG uses 360 deals. He explains why. He breaks down the math. He tells artists exactly what they're giving up and exactly what they're getting back. Most executives hide behind vague language like partnerships and shared success. Gotti says, yes, we take a percentage. Here's why. Here's what we invest. Here's how we make you more money than you could make alone. When you sign to CMG, you know the terms up front. Nothing sneaky. nothing hidden. To really understand CMG, compare it to other labels. Think about all the notorious horror stories. TLC selling millions but going bankrupt. Lil Wayne locked in a war with Cash Money. Mace having to buy out his Bad Boy contract. Artists from major labels who still haven't been paid properly. Endless battles over masters, releases, royalties. Now ask yourself, have you heard any CMG artists saying these kinds of things? Not one specific claim. No lawsuits. No accusations of stolen royalties. No, Gotti won't let me drop. Just vague online rumors like he's finessing his artists. There's a big difference between accusations with receipts and Twitter conspiracy theories. And that difference matters. To understand whether Gotti is exploiting artists, you have to understand how labels earn revenue. Let's break it down. 1. Recording revenue. This is the money from streams, sales, and downloads. Typical music industry splits? Labels usually take 50% to 85%. Artists usually get 15% to 50%. Sounds unfair at first, until you realize the label pays for everything. Studio sessions, producers, engineers, mixing and mastering, music videos, which can cost $50,000 to $300,000, marketing and promo, playlist pitching, radio campaigns, rollout strategies. If the label spends $200,000 on a project and it fails, the label eats the loss. The artist keeps the advance and moves on. That's why the label gets a bigger slice. It's their money on the line. 2. Publishing revenue. This is money earned whenever the song is streamed, played on radio, used in commercials, performed live, featured in TV film. If CMG participates in publishing, it's within normal industry range, nothing excessive or unusual. 3. Touring revenue. Under 360 deals. Traditionally, touring was all the artist's money, but modern deals split touring revenue, usually 10 to 20% to the label. Is that fair? If the label helps fund the tour, supports logistics, uses connections to get festival placements, or guarantees performance slots, then yes, it's justified. CMG appears to support tours heavily. Artists have said it themselves. 4. Merch revenue. 360 deals typically give labels 10 to 25% of merch. Again, if the label is investing in designs, production, inventory, online shop management, merch branding, then the percentage makes sense. CMG reportedly provides that support. 5. Catalog ownership. Long-term money. Old music becomes more valuable every year because streaming never stops. If CMG co-owns the masters, the label benefits from evergreen income. This is standard in the industry, and honestly, it's the biggest reason labels build wealth. So, what does this look like in real numbers? Let's run a hypothetical example of a successful CMG artist. Recording revenue, $2 million, CMG takes 65%, $1.3 million. Publishing, $500,000, CMG takes 40%, $200,000. Touring, $3 million. CMG takes 15%, $450,000. Merch, $300,000. CMG takes 20%, $60,000. Total CMG revenue from this one successful artist, $2.01 million per year. Across a roster of multiple artists, you can see how CMG becomes a $500 million empire without resorting to exploitation. Imagine this. One successful CMG artist brings in around $2 million a year for the label, while that same artist still takes home over $2 million themselves. Now multiply that across a roster of more than 10 artists. Add in catalog money from older songs that stream forever. Suddenly, you can see exactly how CMG reaches a $500 million valuation without anyone getting robbed. That's not exploitation, that's business. To understand Yo Gotti's wealth, and whether it comes from finessing artists, you have to look far beyond CMG. Because the truth is simple. CMG is just one piece of a much larger empire. The early mistakes he spoke about, Overspending, property taxes, financial mismanagement, those became lessons. Lessons he used to rebuild a serious real estate portfolio across Memphis and other cities. This time, he invested wisely, with professional management and long-term planning. Real estate gave him stability, cash flow, appreciation, a financial backbone outside the chaos of the music business. That's smart investing, not exploiting artists. In 2023, he opened Privy, an upscale Memphis restaurant. A real business, real jobs, real revenue. In 2022, he became a minority owner of DC United, an MLS franchise. That's an investment only major players can make. High-level circles, long-term growth, serious money. Then there's tech, esports, digital investments. Moves that have nothing to do with rap and everything to do with generational wealth. So, when people say Gotti made $500 million off the backs of artists, they're missing the truth. Most of his wealth comes from smart, diversified investments, not CMG contracts. There's another layer to this story. In 2020, Gotti helped fund a lawsuit against the notorious Parchman Prison in Mississippi, fighting against inhumane conditions. That move didn't make him money. It cost him time and political capital. But he did it anyway. He invests in youth programs, community initiatives, and development projects in Memphis. These aren't profit plays. They're impact plays. That doesn't make him perfect, but it certainly doesn't match the picture of a predatory label boss. I dug through interviews, industry conversations, and commentary from executives who know how labels operate behind the scenes. The message is consistent. Yo Gotti is respected. Kevin Liles, Def Jam legend, Leor Cohen, one of the most powerful music executives alive. Managers, A&Rs, insiders. They all speak highly of CMG's structure, Gotti's leadership, and how he treats artists. If CMG was actually dirty, believe me, these people would know, and they wouldn't be praising him. After looking at the evidence, the artists, the contracts, the business structure, the industry comparisons, the conclusion is clear. There's no legitimate proof that Yo Gotti built CMG by exploiting artists. What we see instead is contracts that match or beat industry standards, artists who stay for years and publicly praise the label, financial literacy programs, unheard of in hip-hop, transparency about deal terms, percentages, and 360 structures, real support, development, marketing, connections, resources, proven success stories across multiple careers. Yes, CMG uses 360 deals, but they're upfront about it. They provide value that justifies their cut. Artists actually earn more than they likely would alone. That's not exploitation. That's a functioning, healthy business. The truth is more impressive than the rumor. Yo Gotti didn't get rich by tricking artists. He got rich by learning the game from the bottom through painful mistakes, connecting artist wins to label wins, being transparent about the deals others hide, giving artists real tools and real opportunities, diversifying into real estate, restaurants, sports, and tech, building long-term relationships over short-term profits, earning a reputation strong enough to attract the next generation. Anyone can finesse people short-term. Very few can build something that lasts. Gotti didn't finesse his artists. He finessed the system. He mastered the rules, played the long game, and built an empire that outgrew music entirely. The rumors stick around because people can't believe you can make hundreds of millions in the music industry without being corrupt. But the evidence shows you can, if you're disciplined, smart, and strategic enough. So, now it's your turn. Is Yo Gotti a predatory executive exploiting young artists? Or is he one of the rare label bosses who actually does business the right way and built a $500 million empire through intelligence and work ethic? Let me know your thoughts. And if you appreciate investigations based on facts, not gossip, Subscribe for more breakdowns on hip-hop business, because at the end of the day, the truth always hits harder than the rumors. And in this case, the truth is simple. A man from North Memphis figured out the game, played it better than almost anyone else, and built generational wealth in the process. That's not exploitation. That's excellence.